The film is about June, who is currently looking for a full-time job. During the day, he works as a social media influencer that helps people online and is known as Genie. Then in the evening, he works part-time as a convenience store clerk. His best friend Min is studying to become a police officer. One evening, after their shift, they go to the terrace of their hostel building and see a young girl named SEO. She is taking a picture of herself and posts it on Instagram. She lives in their building and she is also studying for exams. That night while SEO is studying, she receives a DM on Instagram. It's a strange picture sent from an account named Ereshkigal, and there's also a message with it. The text asks SEO what is the meaning of her life. She states how she's training hard to achieve her dreams. She gets another message that calls her efforts meaningless and offers to tell her the real meaning of her life. Meanwhile, June is looking at requests for help on his Genie account. In order to get popular, he only helps people who have a lot of followers on Instagram. The following day, he goes to a career council booth that needs help in promoting their goals to the public. The lady at the booth has a PhD in criminal psychology and her name is Ji Hyun. She offers to give June free counseling, but he says he's too busy. That night June is smoking at the terrace when Min notices that he looks worried. June tells Min that SEO made a request on his Instagram, but he was afraid that his identity will become public, so he didn't help her yet. The next evening, June replies to Seo's request and tells her that he's too busy and can't help her right now. Later that night, a stranger is taking pictures of their building and Min almost runs over this guy. When Min gets back, June is looking at the police, who are searching a room. The officer explains that they found a girl's body, and it seems that she took her own life due to stress. June and Min walk by the room and see the body. They are shocked to see that it's Seo's body. That night, June looks at Seo's request again. She told him that she was training to be an idol, but she was suffering from depression and needed someone to listen to her. June feels guilty about this when he receives a message from Ereshkigal's account. The message asks June about the meaning of his life. He ignores it, but then the same person texts him using Seo's account. June shows all of this to Min and also tells him that Ereshkigal left a similar comment on Seo's post before her death. He even asks Ereshkigal if he is responsible for Seo's death, but he replies with cryptic messages. June and Min take this to the police and ask them to investigate. However, the officer tells them that they have already closed the case because they think SEO took her life. The detective also advises the boys to spend their time studying so they can find jobs. After meeting with the police, June is disappointed. He knows the police won't help, so he tells Min that they will solve the mystery of Seo's death themselves. They see the ad for a private investigation agency, and they pay them a visit. The company is run by a guy who is a field detective. He wants to help the boys, so he asks his assistant Nuri to help June and Min. Nuri is an IT expert, and she starts getting more information on Ereshkigal. She also explains that Ereshkigal is the name of a Sumerian goddess. Then, she finds out all the accounts where Ereshkigal left a comment, and to everyone's horror, most of these accounts belong to dead people. They realize that this case is way bigger than they expected. Nuri thinks that Ereshkigal caused the death of dozens of people without physically being there, and that's why he hasn't been caught. She gives June and Min the addresses of some of these people to confirm if they are actually dead. The cameraman from earlier is spying on these guys. He even takes photographs of Nuri when they are leaving to go home at night. The next day, both friends go to a victim's house and find out that the guy is really dead. They also see how sad the victim's mother is. That afternoon, they decide that no matter what, they'll catch this Ereshkigal. June knows he needs help, so he decides to go to Ji Hyun to get some professional advice. While they're on their way, Min tells June that they are being followed by a cameraman near their building. They try to lure the cameraman into an alley, but he figures it out and starts running. June tries to chase the guy, but he bumps into some other guy and hurts himself. Ji Hyun puts a bandage on June's wounds, and they tell her about Ereshkigal. She tells them that the only way to stop Ereshkigal is to spread awareness. She also explains that Ereshkigal makes people take their lives by exploiting their stress and depression. June goes straight to his friend Minsu, who runs a popular live stream. June asks for his help, and Minsu spreads knowledge about Ereshkigal in his transmission. He tells people not to reply to anything that Ereshkigal says. Not long after, Min receives a text from Nuri, who asks them to meet her urgently. She shows them how Ereshkigal also sent her a message. They are now sure that they are being watched. So Nuri sends the boys to go on a terrace to look for the cameraman while she pretends to work. June and Min soon spot the cameraman and give his location to Nuri, who runs to catch the cameraman. June and Min go after her, but she has already taken down the cameraman. They take the guy back to their office and interrogate him. Nuri finds some perverted pictures in his camera, including some pictures of her own. They threaten to kill him, so he starts speaking. His name is Jay, and Ereshkigal found some incriminating pictures of him. Ereshkigal then blackmailed Jay to complete certain missions. These mostly included spying on other people. However, one of the girls that he was spying on ended up dead pretty soon. June puts all of this on social media, and then he receives a call from Detective Go. The detective tells June that they found Ereshkigal's address, but when they raided him, Ereshkigal took his own life. The detective asks June not to look for Ereshkigal anymore. June is still confused about Ereshkigal's motives. That evening, he meets up with Min and Nuri. They all think that it's shady how easily Ereshkigal was caught. Min wants to keep their search going, but June tells him that they should focus on their own future. Then they go for dinner, where they start drinking. June asks Nuri why she is working at the detective agency. Nuri tells them about how she got fired from her previous job, which led her to depression. She was undergoing treatment when she took this job to keep herself busy. June, on the other hand, tells them that he doesn't know what he's looking for in life. After dinner, June is at the terrace when Min tells him that Nuri fell asleep in his room. Then they talk about their goals and go to sleep. The next morning, Nuri wakes up in Min's room, who has left her a note. She leaves that room and goes back to the office. Her boss gives her the location of an IP address that she asked for. That morning she receives a new text from Ereshkigal, and she starts chatting. On the other hand, Min comes back to his room to find a note that Nuri left for him. That evening, Minsa calls June to tell him that Ereshkigal will do a live stream very soon. June knows that this stream can cause a lot of deaths. He and Min try to call Nuri, but she cuts off Min's call. Min knows something is wrong, so he goes to her house, where she is lying on the ground bleeding. They call the ambulance and Nuri is taken to the hospital. Meanwhile, Min goes to Minsa's place and calls out Ereshkigal on the live stream. When he gets back to his room, Ereshkigal has texted him. Ereshkigal tells Min that he wants to become a policeman just because he hates his father. He then asks Min to stay away from everyone for 24 hours, and also forces him to listen to some music. The music hypnotizes Min, but June shakes him and brings him out of this trance. The next day, June visits Nuri in the hospital. She tells him how she was hypnotized. She also gives him Ereshkigal's address. June goes there, and on his way, he leaves Detective Go a message. He wants Go to come to the address that he will text. But just then, Ereshkigal's workers surround him. They want to kill him, but Min saves him and asks June to run. Min also starts running as the men chase him. June, on the other hand, gets to a building where Detective Go hits him, and he passes out. When he wakes up, he finds out that Go is working for Ereshkigal because she has some private pictures of him. He also knows that Ereshkigal is none other than Ji Hyun. She told June that a few years ago, he caused a meat company to go bankrupt by his viral post. The company owner took his life due to this stress. However, his daughter is a criminal psychologist named Ji Hyun, and her office has the same IP address as that of Ereshkigal. Ji Hyun tells June that she doesn't blame June for her family's misfortunes. Instead, she's grateful to June for opening her eyes to the reality of the world. That's when her office lights go out. June tells her that he brought back up. So Go decides to strangle June while Ji Hyun runs to the terrace. June is saved by the boss of the detective agency, and he goes after Ji Hyun. She wants to live stream her music to the audience, but June tells her that he used a hidden camera to live stream Ji Hyun's plans to the people already. Hearing this, Ji Hyun jumps from the terrace. However, she falls on an air mat and survives. Meanwhile, Min is saved by Nuri and her assistant, who beat up Ereshkigal's goons. The three friends go for dinner that night. The film ends with Min finally studying for his exams and Nuri standing in the detective agency. June, however, admits how he faked the image of the fried chicken that led to Ji Hyun's father's death. He feels guilty for all the death and chaos, and he shares it with his audience. And that wraps up our recap for the movie Search Out. Feel free to drop a comment below as to what we should recap next. Thank you for watching.